Okay, are there any additions to the agenda, Commissioner?
Certainly hope
A pretty full plate. The nays have it. Consent agenda.
Move to adopt consent agenda A and B.
not. Second.
By Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Bugle to adopt consent agenda items A and B. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, I'm have a financial stake in Class County building supply. Checks in there would be, I would not be voting on any checks in there. So I don't know if there is.
Move to adopt consent agenda C.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett to approve agenda item C. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's the first time I've seen that. We have closed captioning happening on the
Oh,
screen. as
that's
we speak,
weird.
So that threw me for a
Do
second.
you have to have that? Oh, you can hide the captions, yeah.
Interesting. And I have no one signed up for the meeting here to speak unless they meant to check the box. And is there anyone online who wishes to speak to the commission?
I don't see any hands raised on my screen.
And Kim and Jan, was that you? You didn't have anything? Sometimes people miss the box. Mr. Iverson's not so lucky. We'll call on him later. Old business Marina update.
Hey, Commissioners,
Good morning.
a little bit of sunshine today, yeah?
Yeah.
How about
You
it?
like it?
Finally.
Okay, so we've given a couple of Marina updates in the past, but it's been a while since we've had any visual aids. So I thought I'd give you a brief overview of our improvement project. But yeah, we'll focus on the upland section. Okay. This slide, the first slide is going. Sorry about that. As you know, Scappoose Bay Marina is a major river hub and tourist attraction with a population growth of recreational users, drawing people from the Portland and all over the region, including large organizations like REI, who uses our facility for outdoor education and paddle sports throughout the entire season. The marina sees over 2,000 visitors each weekend, and we can no longer meet the demands of these users. Go to the next slide. In this slide, she'll get that.
Yeah, for
There you
some
go.
reason, I'm not getting it on the Zoom. So,
It's okay. We can see it in the screen here and all commissioners are present, so.
Okay. In this slide, the severity of crowding and the change in uses has resulted in a significant need to rehabilitate the facility. Motorized boaters are no longer the majority of the users. Our public survey shows that it is nearly split 50-50 between motorized and non-motorized users. So equally around the facility. And those non-motorized, I'm referring to paddlecraft, kayaks, canoes, paddles, stand-up boards, et cetera. Our marina improvement project will address facility function, capacity issues, safety, and ADA concerns. In this slide, you can see the plans for the entire project that includes the upland phase as part of a two-phased project, which includes major in-water work, such as a new boat ramp, main dock, kayak get-ready platform, beach launch, low-profile fingers, and ADA platform in the water with a transfer bench. For those that are physically challenged, that would be very helpful. On the next slide, what we're focusing on today and the project that we're more focused and engaged on right now is the upland portion. And we're wrapping this up right now. We're close to in a construction phase. By renovating this upland phase, will provide 2 pay stations for convenience and to reduce vehicle and pedestrian conflict. Include a new kayak offloading area with the air compressor. If you see the big green landscaped area, right at the end of the car parking lot before you get to the boat pull-in lane, there's a concrete area. That will be the new get ready area for kayaks so they're not flooding the boat ramp area. So it separates and reduces congestion. They'll have an air compressor there to get their kayaks ready and put their equipment down. They can park, there's another pay station in the grassy area to the north of the car parking area. That also separates congestion, so they can pay and park very close and unload their equipment real close. It'll also alleviate congestion with wider sidewalks, provide additional ADA parking, provide additional car parking, as you can see in front of the Marina building where those red arrows are. That's all new additional parking there. It'll include 2 designated crosswalks for pedestrian safety, add new landscaping, and improve and update our emergency equipment and FDCs at the Marina. We received all of our permits except for our building permit, which we're at the tail end of getting. We just received the plan review from the city with just minor comments that our engineers are addressing now. We are ready to go out to bid and expect the plan to be completed by the end of this September. I'll also add that OSMB is highly in favor of this project, the entire project. And for the upland phase has given us a grant award of $407,912, which is about half of what we need
For this phase
for
one.
this phase 1. Last one. And so I thank you for your attention, and can I answer any questions?
Well, it's wonderful. It's a really good idea. I'm wondering if we don't need to include the public in what's going on here. Because of the fact that this is not a sustainable business as far as the marina goes, and subsidizing of it times seems to me that it would behoove us and the public to know what it takes to keep this marina afloat, so to speak, no pun intended. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
So we're not getting it on Zoom right now. It might need to take a minute to fix that.
Okay.
Just the visuals or?
Just the visual is not showing up there. So might need to take a little break to.
We have some other things that we. Looking at.
Actually, one comment for Miriam while we're working on that, if that's okay. So last night we talked about this at the Marina Advisory Committee meeting. And I think you're gonna follow up on this, but we just glossed over it a little bit. The city of Scappoose somehow has rights to review what we have going on at our marina. I believe if I understood that correctly, which doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure we want to set a precedent, say that we feel that's okay. So I think Miriam's gonna look into it, push back a little bit.
Yeah.
Why they feel they have the right to review. our plan.
Yeah,
You mean
it's not
that?
in either city.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not really in either city.
So that was confusing to me and
When did you find out about this?
I found out last night. So
About Thursday
yeah.
And how did you find out?
Yeah.
in an email.
From the city?
Yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
go out and get all the information. I doubt it's gonna be a big issue. It's just
Yeah,
protocol.
a format.
But even if we agree,
Definitely say there's a much stronger case for St. Helens stuff.
Water too.
Does the county review it?
I would think the county.
The building permit is with the county.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that, and Miriam's already on it, but just seemed weird to me and like a precedent we don't want to set saying, yeah, okay, it's your.
even if they approve of what we're doing, I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's nothing against the city of Scappoose.
No.
It's not our,
Well, and.
not their jurisdiction.
Coming up now, if this has always been the case.
The only thing I can think of, and I'm just spitballing, is the county could be behind in planning and might be using the city for some help.
I was wondering that.
Oh.
We had just only 2 plan reviewers. And they were all backlogged, and then it was sent over to the city. So I would guess that is the reason, but I didn't want to say anything until I found out.
Okay,
It's still not the city. It's the county's contractor, whoever they use.
For an ordinance, yeah.
Yeah.
Code and everything, yes.
City, I don't ever want to see a letter from the city that says they have jurisdiction.
We'll figure it out. I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
More to follow.
Interesting. How we doing? Do we want to go to something without a visual?
That would be Elliot's, right?
Lacey at the airport, did she?
What's happening is her machine is not showing the share screen feature for some reason. It's just on. So
Some checkbox somewhere.
he maybe email them over to me and then I can share screen.
So I could.
she could make you the co-host.
Elliot can do the Fort Westford dock update without visuals.
Correct.
Okay, go back to items B and D.
I'd say half to 3/4 of the way across, wrapping that up. So that's, pretty much wrapping up literally, the work to restore the dock.
And since the dock returned to service, we've now loaded 4 vessels of renewable diesel. So the CPBR has loaded a total of 353,000 barrels of RD, and that has generated $75,000 of dockage and wharfage for the port.
It's out of the business interruption phase.
We are definitely out, yeah, it probably ended as of April 1st. Quantities are a little lower per ship than they had been, but that's probably more supply side than anything to do with us. So, we have a lot of things in the works for upgrading, addressing seismic issues at the Port Westward. And one of the things we've started working on also is the fire system. So I did have a diagram to show you one of the 2 projects that we have in mind there is to restore the old fire loop. So the water used to go in a circle so that you could feed the dock in either directions. And it was discontinued maybe in the 70s. I mean, this is decades ago. And it's fine, we had a one-way water service to the dock, but we do want to restore it. It should improve the flow and just be a good upgrade of the system. So this past week, we met with CPBR and an engineering firm to start the planning of that. Because it's not as simple as just digging a trench and putting pipe in. So that project's starting to move forward, but this would be the scope of work to design it. And the second thing that I've mentioned in the past that we want to do is connect the fire system to our water intake system. That should also improve flow. It's closer, and then we would have redundancy because currently the fire water is supplied from the PGE water discharge system. So those are things that are in the works that we just wanted to let you know.
Also, the important to note too on this fire system issue, the dock, we anticipate the dock looking much different in the future as we scale back and reduce the footprint and the creosote. So there's, we have to take a look at that because currently there's 1,000 sprinkler heads underneath that dock. That we wouldn't need all of that should we reduce that footprint and change the makeup of it.
This would be interesting hydrant flow at each entrance.
We'd still have, and we're looking at maybe even switching it to a dry system because that would be maybe better to do later on. And by dry system, I mean, we wouldn't have water flowing underneath the dock all the time, which we have now. And we've been working very closely with this Claxon Fire Department on this. They're definitely looped in. And then the other thing I wanted to just update you on is that Dan Luckett has retired. So his position has been taken by Doug Lentz, and he's worked up there and actually managed the day-to-day operations for many years. But for one, I'm sorry to see Dan go. And that's my doc update if anyone has any questions. And should I go on to the PG?
Sure. Is there a substantial completion date or something, which time we're gonna start hammering out loss of business and some of the insurance?
I don't know if there's a set date. I am meeting with the adjuster. We've been meeting pretty regularly and we're gonna talk again on Friday. We're still receiving bills for the reimbursements. And they're pretty complicated, because there are multiple parties and some of them, we don't see what PGE's gone, so we may question something that's already been addressed. So it's kind of a roundabout process. And some of these things we're, talking to the contractor directly, but they're working for CPBR and working with us indirectly. So it's a process and it's going to take some time.
Because there's some decisions gonna have to be made about ownership issues and final dispensation of the second access and.
Correct. I can't say when that will be done by. It's going to be a long process.
Thank you.
Do you have any updates on the insurance end of it? What's going on there?
That's a big part of what we've been talking about on the bill. So there's a lot of back and forth in terms of, which part will go through to whom, dividing them up between the various parties. And then the adjusters, we're not involved directly with the vessel owner and their insurance. That all goes through the adjusting process. And you can imagine everyone has their adjusters. So there are quite a few of those as well.
I guess maybe my question is more along the line of, has liability been established? Is that all under?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Sure. Anybody else?
I probably already asked this, but the existing dock that was struck, is there intention to, I know I talked to you about it in passing, are we planning on keeping that until we possibly have an idea to use have a slip there or something?
You're talking about the downstream approach to the remnants?
Yeah.
Sort of, that would be, in my view, something we would, if we were to demolish it, that would be later on. Last thing, just because we're going to have so many demands for finance that it's better to spend it doing the other work that needs to be done there and then leave it for later on. And then the other advantage of that is, and what you might be alluding to, is that the mitigation, light mitigation, we might need to remove some of that to create light. And so we don't want to do that too early, prevent that from being available to us.
There's also the possibility, and I know it's future, thinking along the future lines, if we wanted to save at least part of that approach to be able to access berth 3, which we would go down and take a left and however that would look, whether that's connected to the main stem with a catwalk or an acro bridge like we have. But yeah, the potential for, if we wait long enough and we don't have to do anything, we could still, would scale it back, the footprint, similar to what we're going to try to do with the rest of the dock, creosote, but that could be an advantage to have it there too.
Certainly.
I would be very interested if there were grant opportunities, because I don't think anybody recognizes what we've done on those acro bridge, on the one that's in and the one we're looking at, to reduce shading and creosote in the river both, so.
Well, I anticipate we'll be creating more, we'll have a small footprint going forward as we address the seismic issues of the dock. And in fact, we are working with the engineers. I have a scope on my computer to work on conceptual design work. Again, working very closely with CPBR of options for what that dock might look like down the road.
Thank you.
That was the other thing about having Dan Luckett working with us, because him and Elliot, over the years, we've had a vision for the dock, and luckily for us, I believe, Doug's been out there a long time, and Doug and Dan are pretty much in lockstep a lot of the time as far as engineering goes. So having Doug as that continuity is going to be very helpful.
And I actually talked about some of our vision of that dock with Doug earlier this week, and there was nothing that seemed to surprise him.
I'd like to have lunch or something with you and Doug, if he's gonna fill Dan Luckett's role.
We can arrange that.
Work to do.
You have a report from the tech department? We've enabled the screen share, but we need to restart the Zoom video in order to make it work. We just need a few minutes, a few minute break at this point and we probably need to tell the folks.
I was just gonna say
There's
that.
only two other folks who've been on work staff online, Dan Sears and Scott Kyler from WS. If you can let them know that they're gonna need to sign back in
after we do this.
Okay. Can you hear that, both, Mr. Series and Mr. Keeler? I'll have you sign back in here in a second so you can see our visuals.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Will do.
Thanks for your patience. See you in a couple. All right.
Take a break, enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go exchange for non-jalapeno. Okay, and we're out. Thank you for your patience. Elliot, did you want to care about item E?
Good morning again. So at our last meeting, I reported that PGE had committed to respond to all the draft legal agreements before the end of April. Unfortunately, they did not meet that deadline. But the good news is last Friday, we received 4 of the agreements and we're told the balance of those legal agreements would be coming later this week. So hopefully that will happen. And we've not evaluated the documents that have been received in the meantime because they just came in last Friday. But that's what I have with that.
Nice, in the right direction.
Yes, hopefully we'll see the proof will be the details.
Look forward to more updates on that, Elliot. Thank you. Any questions? All right, let's move on to back to airport item B. Thank you, Elliot. Lacey.
Just while Lacey's walking up, I will let you know that, as you notice, Lacey's walking up and Amy's not. Lacey is going to retain the airport coordinator role as we keep Amy Foley in business development and deputy directing. So you'll see Amy doing some of the meetings that I do and her business development work. And Lacey has done such a great job while Amy was out. We're going to keep rolling with that for now. So.
Okay.
Lacey Tolles.
Good morning, commissioners. There are no pending through the fence agreements at this time. All projects are currently in process and moving along. This includes west side pavement maintenance, runway rehabilitation, and the installation of the 2 emergency generators. Currently, the port is drafting an easement with Transwestern Aviation for access to the emergency generators during installation, the property during installation and future use. Northeast Electric, which is the electricians who will be installing the generators, will receive a notice to proceed following the execution of the easement. We are hoping to begin work within the next 5 to 6 weeks. Moving on to the airport plane crash, the Cessna 170B. At 5:52 p.m. on Monday, April 29th, an airplane owned by Flying Aces Club, run by Clayton Evelyn, crashed at the Scappoose Airport. Emergency services were dispatched to the scene, including Scappoose Police Department and Scappoose Fire District. The pilot was not injured and needed no medical attention. The port was notified immediately, filed a NOTAM for airport closure, and the fire district deployed its drone for their investigation. Next slide. Here's some pictures of the crash. I spoke with Mr. Evelyn on Monday, 2 days ago. He stated that the event was due to a strong gust of wind. Next slide. Our fixed base operator, Transwestern Aviation, was notified and procured a tow truck to remove the plane from the runway. The runway was cleared of any remaining foreign object debris or FOD by airport tenant, Mr. Eveland, and the Scappoose Airport was fully operational by 9:42 p.m. DEQ contacted the port regarding the spillage information. They spoke with Ms. Bynum. A small amount of gas or aviation fuel was spilled onto the runway at the crash site. The amount was less than 10 gallons and was deemed minimal by DEQ representatives, and the issue was resolved. Thursday, May 2nd, James Kirby, our airport engineer from Century West, Ms. Bynum and myself met at the Scappoose Airport to assess the crash site. Next slide. It was recommended to monitor the site moving forward. We will fill the grooves When we do our runway rehabilitation in 2025, there's no insurance claim necessary. Those, the bottom left-hand slide, those are very superficial scrapes, nothing more than what you would see in the crack slurry fill areas. Very superficial. We're very thankful. There were no injuries. I would like to thank the city of Scappoose, Scappoose Police, Scappoose Fire District, Mr. Evelyn, and Transwestern Aviation for their quick response. Any questions?
Sounds like the system worked. Everything, notifications went out right.
And the fact that the pilot walked away, that's amazing. Yeah. Was he in active leaving or?
He was landing. He was arriving.
He was arriving. Wow, I bet that was a fright.
Yes, yes. I've not given any other informations about the pilot, which is fine. All right.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Clark, is there any Lignetics neighbors up here?
What I will tell you is, I was gonna say no report, but it does, there's a little caveat to that. Currently, we're working with plant manager Steve Nelson on some deferred maintenance items that they'd inherited with the, when they took over the lease, some items that had not been fully addressed by West Oregon Wood. So currently, as we talked, the commission was trying to figure out what we could do to help Lignetics, help ease the burden of what they're doing with their capital improvements. So I'm bringing that up to say that we're looking at these deferred maintenance items to see where it makes sense for us to help in regards to those things, as we obviously want the infrastructure protected. Outside of the issues that they're dealing with capital, we need our buildings to be, good repair. So working through that, yeah. We'll report more. I'll have more to say next month.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, any other old business? New business. Cisco.
Morning.
Good morning.
And I believe Scott Kyler is also on from WSP. Got you there?
He is on.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Well, we are happy to present the final strategic business plan update for your approval. We kicked this off last August with our kickoff meeting, and it has been a process over the how many months that we've been working on this. We see this as a guide that will help us as we look forward to policies and projects for the next 10 years. It will also help us with obtaining grant funds. We also updated the port's mission. Do you want to pull up the envision statement as a part of this project? And we are hoping to get this approved, submit it and file it with Business Oregon and start using this. Any questions or?
No, thank you for getting all this.
Okay. All right
I would say,
then.
how long ago did we start this, Gina? Was it a year ago?
Yeah, well, we started the RFP process and back last spring, but then we decided to wait to kick off until we had the commissioners established after the last elections. That's why it waited till August. We started the timeline out a little bit, but because we wanted to make sure everybody had input. We did a lot of community outreach. We had 3 open houses, 2 surveys, stakeholder interviews, made sure everybody got to have their input into this. Hopefully we can keep this alive and use it. And it is a living document, so it's not like it's static. We can definitely adjust it every year. We have our goals in there and our priorities for projects for the next 10 years, so.
And you will see later at the budget meeting how we've integrated the strategic business plan, some of the items into our budget too. So we should always be considering. Now that we have this plan, we have a roadmap. So
Yes.
thank you, Gina. Great work on it. Thank you, Scott.
It's a resolution, so we need
I
a.
was gonna say, I'm
Oh, that's right. Not over yet.
looking for,
I would move approval of resolution 2024-06.
Second.
it's been moved by Commissioner Fawcett, seconded by Commissioner Sorber to approve resolution 2024-06, strategic business plan, revised mission statement, and the vision statement and guiding principles. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Gina, thank you, WSP.
Thank you, Gina, for your work on that, all your work, and Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been our pleasure. Good to work with the port again.
Okay, Elliot.
Morning, Commissioners. If adopted, Resolution 2024-07 would authorize the port to execute a proposed insurance settlement with one of our two insurance companies that cover the Railroad Avenue property. To recap, the port has owned the Railroad Avenue property for about 60 years. For many years, that property has been under investigation for creosote contamination. The contamination was caused by Pope and Talbot, who was the prior owner of the property. Unfortunately, due to Pope and Talbot's bankruptcy, the port, as the property owner, is the responsible party for the site cleanup, even though the pollution was caused by someone else. You may recall that the port completed a remedial investigation and feasibility study that was required under a consent order that the port entered into with DEQ back in April 1995. Last September, the port completed its obligations under that consent order when DEQ issued its Record of Decision, or ROD. After issuing the ROD, DEQ presented the port with a draft consent order that they would like us to sign. This consent order will define the port's obligations through the design and implementation of the remediation specified by the ROD, and it will be followed by 100 years of maintenance and monitoring obligations. DEQ will appear at a Port Commission meeting within the coming months to discuss the new consent order and the next steps at the site. As I mentioned earlier, the port has identified two insurance companies that cover the creosote pollution at Railroad Avenue. Great American Alliance Insurance provided $2.6 million of coverage, and a consortium of companies that are now controlled by Liberty Mutual provided up to $3.5 million of coverage. Some time ago, Great American approached the port for a settlement of all claims under this policy. The risk of doing so earlier is that defense costs are not included in the insurance policy limits. However, with the passage of time, that risk is subsiding. The advantage of settling the claim is that the port would gain control of the remaining funds, which is about $2.5 million. Plus, we negotiated a $62,500 payout to cover possible expenses that have yet to be incurred but would fall outside the policy limits. And in the case of Great American, the costs that fell outside the policy limits have already exceeded over $400,000, but much of that was incurred earlier on before the feasibility stage. By controlling these funds, the port would gain the benefit of interest those funds earn. 5% interest on $2.5 million is $125,000 per year. As things stand now with inflation, the value of the policies actually decline over time, since the policy limits are fixed amounts that are not indexed against inflation. Most importantly, settling the claim eliminates the port's exposure to the insurance company going bankrupt. Several of you may recall a couple of years ago, it appeared that that second bucket of insurance that's controlled by Liberty Mutual had gone bankrupt, and that we would lost the benefit of those policies. And so for these reasons, the port recommends that Resolution 2024-07 be adopted. Any questions?
I think we covered it last meeting as well. So questions, commissioners?
Well, we have somebody who's very familiar with this project that's been going on for a long time, Mr. Iverson. And I believe he's willing to talk to us about his opinion on his 14 years of working on this issue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is as you all know, an issue that's been going on for quite a while, and we've asked some questions about it in the past, and and it's through no fault of the port. I'm still unclear about a few of those things. One of the issues that we brought up, and maybe this is a Bob question, but these were occurrence insurance policies. So every time there was an occurrence, in my opinion, if it happened in year after year after year, there should be separate limits of insurance for these policies. And so I'm just wondering how they ever figured out that you had 2.5 million in coverage on this. And that was the max that they could pay out. I asked that question. We did hire an attorney at one point, and I asked that question of the pollution attorney that we hired, and I never did get an answer on it. And so I'm just curious how that happened.
I mean, if we get too far into it, we might need to go to executive session, but then this is a deep rabbit hole on this, but the occurrence is defined in the policy as a single release, basically. So the contamination, in other words, is all one occurrence in the policy.
Even though it was over years of time.
Yeah.
That's not how you understand it.
I didn't get to see that. I've never gotten to read the policies, and it wasn't around back then, of course. It was long before my time, and I didn't get to read the Great American Policy for that. But my understanding is that occurrence could be an occurrence in one policy period and then another occurrence in another policy period. What were the total limits that they had on that Great American Policy?
It's multiple policies.
Yeah.
So they had.
And you've got information I've never seen, or haven't had.
So you can see this one is a policy year 83, 84. That's a 1 million, that's Great American, yeah, that's $1 million excess coverage. So there are two umbrella policies.
Okay.
This one is the following year, 84, 85, also Great American. So that's $2 million of coverage. And then they had two policies of $300,000 each. Which was, looks like they call it business protector, but I believe that's like a general liability policy.
Okay.
And so that's how we came up with 2.6. So one of the things we talked about, I don't know if this is exact or not, with the more recent policies in like the 90s, they, as you know better than I, exclude pollution. So we sort of have up until 1985 are the policies that were identified that are in play here.
Okay.
And so that's part of the reason this risk of settling goes away with time, because we're talking about 85.
Right.
And so most of these things would be known.
Okay. When they did a forensic review of the insurance policies, was there more than, there was only two that were identified? And do you know how many other companies that they tried to identify in this?
I didn't print out the full sheet, but this is, there's three. There's quite a few. I don't have that sheet in front of me, but there's quite a few that there was either coverage was denied, couldn't be established, and this goes back.
Those types of things.
Yeah.
What are the and I'm trying to search for the word, are the costs that are associated with determining what the cleanup is included in the 2.5? Are they in addition to the 2.5 in these insurance contracts?
The costs are in addition. If you're talking about like the expenses that for defense.
Right, the DEQ charges and things like that, and us hiring the engineers to go out there and tell us about this and those kinds of things. And if you do that, if you do accept this, I'm assuming they're going to want you to sign away all our rights for any future recovery.
That's correct.
Are we going to lose all that? I mean, if there's anything else that's accessible.
So the answer to your question is some of that fell under the policy limits, some of those expenses, the more recent ones, because we're no longer in the defense stage. Now we're into the remediation, and that kind of thing falls under the policy limits of the bills we see now go into that.
Go against the 2.6.
Yeah. And they've already spent about 100,000 on this policy, so that's why the number is just under, it's like below 2.5.
Provide those numbers. You have those.
Yeah.
There's defense cost and indemnity costs are the later.
Yeah.
Costs.
And
So
what bothers me is they're wanting to pay this off and have you sign a release and get out of it. And that, and I do agree with your statement, you know, it kind of stops. They can't go banko on you or anything else. But it also worries me when an insurance company wants to step up and pay you their policy limits and just walk. There's usually a reason they want to do that. You know, it's beneficial to them in some form or fashion. So, and like I said, you guys know much more than much more about this than I do, because I haven't read the policies. I haven't seen a lot of this information that you have sitting in front of you. But it's I would just make sure every T was crossed and every I was dotted, and you're sure you're getting the maximum amount of benefit you can from these insurance policies. And I agree with that you've read that and that's what you think about the occurrence, but that is not what I know in the insurance industry. I think that's been fought and won before about how many occurrences it is. And unless this policy is specific, I think it would fall in your favor.
So you're saying there's been past practice of cases where that has been proven?
There is cases where they've fought occurrences before. I can't sit and name you a specific one offhand sitting here today, but I trust your attorney and I trust Elliot. And if they say that's the case, I'm
And we
sure
have
they've
attorneys on this, so.
they've
We
researched
spent
it.
quite a bit of time reviewing this, and as you know, we reviewed it here last month. It's the same principles of this, so I'm comfortable with that. I was recalling too, I remember back in the summer of 2021, if you recall, I gathered questions from the commission, and myself, along with outside counsel Laura Maffei, came back with all the answers. We talked about all these things 3 years ago in the summer of 2021 as well. So, but
So
yes, I'm so excited. Yes. But we're comfortable with the settlement. On the defense cost issue, we probably need to talk about that in executive session, I think, but as I said, I'm comfortable with this settlement.
Okay.
That's about as far as I'm willing to go in open session.
I have nothing else to add.
Well, thank you.
That was my 2 cents.
Questions? Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Elliot does a great job, so. Chris, I'd like to stay for the rest of your meeting, but I got to get back to work, so.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you, it's beyond me to know what's the right thing to do. So I think if you're really comfortable with this and the major questions have been answered.
Yeah, the big thing, that came out of that is that the occurrence in the policy is defined in the policy. So any contamination is a single occurrence, even if it happens over a number of years. So.
Well, as long as we're not leaving any money on the table, it would be nice to have that interest coming into our benefit.
It seemed like what Chris was arguing was that they were yearly policies and the occurrence could be every year if they were yearly policies. Is that resolved in this or not in your review?
Yes, that is resolved. By definition in the policy, because he hasn't read the policy, so it's in the policy.
I'm a bird in the hand guy, but I think we should establish that money clearly in its own fund. Let the interest stay in that fund and pledge that to the DEQ to tell them we're not. We're willing to give them what's theirs. We're not willing to give them outside of the insurance recovery yet, but.
Well, that's a good question. So the interest that is earned on this would not be required to go to the cleanup?
We should probably talk about that in executive session as well.
Oh, okay.
But I am recommending approval of this resolution.
Well, should we be approving it now or should we wait until we've done executive session?
Those issues are more strategic, shall we say, going forward after we do this. Yeah.
Then I move to adopt resolution 2024-07.
It's been moved by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett to approve resolution 2024-07 insurance settlement for the Railroad Avenue claim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie and Bob. Executive Director's report.
Thank you, commissioners. Good morning. Just
put something in the time machine here, the April 30th city county dinner, which I thought was a good event out in Vernonia. They're really good hosts out there. I think the big thing that was talked about there that we hit on was power, and that'll continue to be an issue that all of us entities will be discussing. And there's a impromptu task force, I think, that CET's stood up, and we had one call, I think, when I was still back in DC, but hopefully we'll have some more of that stuff lined up. Rainier Historical Society groundbreaking on a Monday. Is that Monday? Tuesday? No, Monday. Guy and I were up there. We met with Commissioner Fawcett for lunch, and then we went over for the groundbreaking. Really long time coming, really good example of the community coming together and a few people wanting to try to make a difference in doing it. So kudos to them. Right across from the senior center in Rainier is where it'll be located, next to their sewer treatment plant. Having lunch with Nathan Cox today of Inroads Credit Union. We met at the Business Retention Task Force orientation meeting and decided we should probably get together and get to know each other, and just good to pick his brain on financing things and different things credit union related.
They did the emergency finance of the pellet mill when there was problems, so that'd be good history for him to know.
Yeah, I'll let him know. Exactly the previous name.
Mhm.
We also have a Northwest Marine Terminals Columbia River and Oregon Coast Subcommittee call this afternoon. Elliot now participating in that. Chamber of Commerce Thursday, Rainier Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to take this Friday through next Tuesday off for some vacation. Be back in the office next Wednesday. And see, Amy will attend the Columbia Economic Team Board meeting on Tuesday next. Next Port PGE meeting is next Thursday. As is, I will be given a State of the Ports update at the Maritime Commerce Club in Portland, their annual State of the Ports breakfast. If anybody would like to go, let me know. We still have time to get you registered for that. It'll be Thursday morning at the Sentinel Hotel. And same day, you got the PNWA monthly membership call and the South County Collaborative. I'm going to try to take that Friday off as well, the Friday the 17th. And egg meeting on the 20th due to the Memorial Day holiday. So May 20th will be the egg meeting. And we'll have a second budget meeting or work session if necessary on the 22nd. And the 27th, the office will be closed for Memorial Day. You'll see there, Elliot already hit on the vessels coming back to Port Westward. And we're working with the Moore Road contractors to get some gas in the ground and some electrical conduit while they have the ditches open. So we can get some power down Airport Road down to the gate, and natural gas will be down there. So I'll just be stubbed and teed off at this time, but until we hopefully eventually need it for some buildings out there. And we're working with the ORPET. I had shared with Commissioner Ward, because she'd had an interest in the ORPET actions, the preliminary enforcement notice. They'd received a letter from DEQ in February, basically citing a bunch of their violations, and they got their attention. ORPET responded to, we sent them a letter in addition. They responded to our letter. They responded to DEQ, cleaned the stuff up. I went out yesterday. I saw they'd already implemented some of their plans, a 10-foot barrier between their area, the perimeter of their area and the eco blocks. They've done a pretty good job. It looks a lot better. So.
DEQ has jurisdiction over the.
Yeah, they have a 1200Z stormwater permit
That's stormwater, okay. Yeah.
As does Stella Jones and US Pipe. So Stella Jones also had, they didn't get a preliminary enforcement notice, but they did get a letter, some corrective actions. We'll be monitoring that, as we don't want anything happening to our sites, and we don't want any contamination to stick around, so.
The pen is the more serious one. The warning letter is kind of first stage, pen is the second stage.
Yes.
Preliminary enforcement notice.
At Willoma, sorry, I just said that, upcoming, I'm gonna be the sole court representative going to Clarkston, Washington for the PNWA, unless anybody else wants to go.
Nice area.
Oh, you wanna go?
No, I don't.
PNWA Summer Conference, a really good session. Citizens Day in the Park on June 22nd. The Fair and Rodeo will have a booth July 18th, and Columbia City Celebration August 10th. That's my report, unless you have questions.
Questions for Sean? Well, it sounds like we will need executive session, so. A reminder, we have a 10 o'clock scheduled, tentatively 10 o'clock budget. Hopefully we can wrap up the E-session prior to.
Yeah, that was the plan. We'd really wrap it up by quarter two or 10 to something like that.
Let's take 5 minutes and get those beginning here. Oh, commissioner reports, yeah. We should do those because we expect no action after the executive session. So Commissioner Fawcett.
I'll keep mine short, but basically I want to add one item to the upcoming events and then have a little discussion about it. And it is the open Turning Point Food Pantry in Clatsville and Rainier hosting a dinner auction in Clatsville City Park on August 3rd at 5:30 p.m. So y'all are invited. What I'm really hoping for is a sponsorship from the port for that. I talked with Sean because it's been slightly confusing as to what our policy is and what we are allowed to do and that sort of thing. So I kind of wanted to get a consensus that everybody was on board with it. I think it does fit within the policy. Sean, feel free to add.
Exceptions are allowed, absolutely. It just has to be a commission decision.
And we do the fundraiser. The plan is to do the fundraiser every other year. Kind of got thrown off in COVID a little bit, but it's opposite of black tie blue jeans. And I see it as a good fit for something to sponsor on the off year. We already sponsor black tie blue jeans, so.
Does it put us in a compromising position with the food bank, the other food bank?
I don't think so.
And how much?
Gina? Gina's here. Gina's a board member of the Pacific Food Bank.
You want me to go up?
If you would, yeah, I had another question for you too on the policies.
Thank you. Open Turning Point Food Pantries, yes.
So our community events, I've always kind of kept separate from sponsorship events. So because I think of them as being community engagement events where we have our port booth, they're open to the public and we host one. I try to do something where we host one in each of our communities, one in Scappoose, St. Helens, Rainier, Clascanine. We also do the fair. And so we do pay to be involved with those, but they're also free to everyone to attend when it's outreach. Technically, there is a policy that we have a no sponsorship policy. We did make an exception to that with black tie and blue jeans. I think we kind of thought that the exception to that was that is raising money for job development scholarships, which fit into our mission. Other than that, any exceptions, I guess, is up to the commission. Only thing I would mention is that if we start sponsoring all of these nonprofit events or a nonprofit event, we will receive, right now, it's pretty well known that we don't do that. So we don't get asked anymore. We used to get asked quite frequently where people would come before commission and ask, for us to do that. And there's a lot of great nonprofits, Amani Center, the food pantries, the food bank, mental health. I mean, there's a lot of them. So I guess it would just be up on you guys to decide who we would sponsor and who we would not.
Wow.
I have a thought that, mission alignment is good, but also I think we could, carve out a caveat for food security. It's a pretty big deal for people to be able to eat. And, it's not like any of the food banks are doing anything wrong. We want to support as a community, not just support. We want to support their efforts and make sure they're helping to feed the folks that can't help themselves. So that's just an idea to throw out as a caveat if you liked it or.
But there are also pantries in each of the 5 cities, and then the Columbia Pacific Food Bank is sort of the distributor for the entire county. So, and they do fundraisers as well. So it's just something else to keep in mind.
Wow. Because it's still ringing in my ears when we went to the town hall event for Merkley and finding out the concern in the community for mental health. And to think that we will exclude mental health, this is hard. It's hard because we'd love to support everything. Maybe what we need to do is have some rotating sponsorship. One event, one cause per year. I don't know, something that allows for some leeway in to who, because, we don't want it to be based on the fact that we have a commissioner who's very involved. That should not be the reason why we're supporting these things.
And you've got, you said it's Hope and,
Yeah,
Point?
it's both food pantries in North County, which I see job development, housing, food insecurity, all issues that are pertinent to our mission. right?
Absolutely.
But I do understand that picking and choosing, I'd love to be the first one. And then, it's a full commission
How
decision.
much are we talking about?
Well, there's different sponsorship levels. I certainly wasn't asking for the top one or anything like that. For a table, it's $1,000. For half a table, it's 500.
Well, maybe we should have a policy if we have a discretionary $1,000 a year to.
And rotate it?
Something to add to that too, or per count, North, and maybe if somebody in South County, it doesn't really matter, I guess. We're not discriminating against mental health or anything else,
Right.
but like, let's say we sponsor the North County thing. We sponsored $1,000 to a North County nonprofit. And then if somebody in South County came to us, and whoever that may be at the time, they're all great. We all agree with that, and we would sponsor that.
Annually, just.
Annually, yeah. I mean, does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, maybe $3,000 a year to go towards sponsorships,
I'd be very concerned because we're gonna get asked for a million very worthy causes.
of course.
But I have no, I would say, in our board meeting, for that reason, maybe we should be doing it. But let's budget an amount
Yes,
because we could easily, it could get monstrous because there's so many good causes.
Yep.
So we're gonna have some fiscal discipline, so. I mean, 3,000 a year, 5,000, I'm.
That's what I'm saying. Let's just pulling a number out of, it's like $1,000 per each,
Try to spread it fairly throughout the district.
Yeah.
But
This is also on, just so you know, on the heels of our budget conversations where we actually have scaled back some of our sponsorships,
The community events
community events.
budget is actually about
Oh,
half what it
I would
was.
say that we have cut, almost half, sorry.
Yeah.
Interrupted you.
Right.
So there's,
trying to make eye contact with Guy back there. I'm talking about this one. Yes,
To technically have a no sponsorship of nonprofit, we'll just see that when you.
yeah.
okay, we need to defer this to more discussion. When's your event?
It's in August, so there's definitely some time. My understanding was there was a exception in one of the policies, so.
It's pretty spelled out in the policy, but then it does say in the policy with the discretion of the executive director. But if we're going to put something in place where we're going to be doing this regularly, then I think the entire policy would need to be amended.
I think we could come up with something pretty easily that would accommodate everybody.
One thing that Quantum Club does, when I was more active with them, is have a deadline to apply for budgeting purposes or whatever, so that the last minute ones are not as likely. When they come in last minute, you can say, we're happy to do it. We'll look at next year.
yeah,
So that we have to be able to sit down the first of each year, have a committee put together and kind of prioritize.
I love that idea. We kind of,
So that way we're not thinking, okay, we're gonna rise past this point. We're gonna focus on a couple different areas or types of,
nonprofit issues.
Right.
I would support that.
If we communicate this, then this is something that the port is doing so that everybody is knowledgeable of.
Yeah.
I mean, if
When we decide
when we decide what we're going to do. Yeah, okay.
So I can do that. I love this and I plan to sponsor it personally as well, but.
Great, okay.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I had in the interest of time.
No pictures of the Caribbean.
Slight pan.
Had lunch with Sean and Guy. Really appreciate the budget report and everything. It was great. Very clearly spelled out, delineated for somebody to easily go through and understand, and love all the slides everybody puts together. It's a really huge help because we're only in here a couple days a month, and it's a big deal being able to lay eyes on that stuff. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I think same for myself, sans the lunch. But yeah, you're at a good visit on the budget.
yeah, I will certainly echo that. The budget this year has been, for me, a really interesting process and one that I have understood better this year. It's also a little scary, the fact that we are not as flush as we would like to be. And that's why all the things that we're talking about, we'd love to do, and the community would, of course, like us to be doing. We're just in a totally different period than we were a few years ago. And frankly, I think that areas like the Marina and the airport, we need to be doing much better communication with how much the port itself supports this, that neither one of those organizations are self-sustaining. And if it weren't for the port, they would go away. I'm not sure that people in the community really understand that. And that's really on us. We need to be able to have that. Everybody in this community should know that these two entities are supported by the port and would go away if it weren't for the port. And especially, you know, it's been quite interesting how many calls I've received regarding just the possibility that we might be discussing reinstating the tax. And the fact that we have these obligations that we want to fulfill, and yet our money is not as plentiful to fulfill all these things. We want the community to know that we're all in this together. You know, wherever the money goes, this is a community decision. And I would just like us to see, I would like us to do more outreach and make this a much more community decision rather than a decision made by 5 commissioners. My personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I would say it was well, got a lot out of the budget meeting with Sean and Guy, and I agree with what I'm hearing from all of you, that whenever I get to spend time with Sean and Bob, Guy, or Amy, I get a lot out of it. So I appreciate sometimes when we're able to carve out time for us. On the tax levy, which will be a big discussion at the budget meeting, I would just like to set the record straight that the initial discussion on why we were going to forego levying the port tax came from me. And the reasoning in my head was that port was doing financially very well, and there should be some benefit. I mean, the folks in this community put up with the transportation, whether it's trucks or trains or ships or whatever. And that's a good thing, and it creates jobs, and there's a benefit from that. And if we could be successful, it'd be nice not to levy the tax. It took a couple of years to get that commission to support that, and we finally did, and I've been glad for that. And we'll have a great discussion today. I'm open-minded. There are things I would like to do, but it's also a nice principle not to tax. So there'll be a good budget committee discussion today. Lastly, I'd like to say Dan Luckett's parting is going to have more of an impact than I think many realize. I first met Mr. Luckett in, I think, about 1996 when the proposal was being put in to build the Cascade grain plant. I might have my year off for 1 or 2, but he was involved with Fagan, the contractor, and Delta T Technology, bringing that out to Port Westward, and was their go-to big vision project man. And Global was smart enough to hire him in that same capacity. And I think Elliot would agree that Dan's his vision down the road, some things that we would surely be missing. And I hope maybe he's available to reach out to once in a while or something. I'm not surprised he retired. He's been in the business a long time and at the top of his game, but we will certainly miss him. I'd like, if the commission doesn't mind, I'd like to send a letter from us thanking him for it's at least 25 years he's been working with the port. So certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. That's it. There's nothing further? Give a speech.
I'm thinking based on the time and the topics that we could put off the executive session to the next meeting and not do it today.
Topics. Yeah. Does anybody have anything that? Well, the one, let's see.
There was
Yeah, there was one. That's what I thought too.
suggestion that Nick and I had, and we do have 19 minutes.
Was it the?
It's your call.
Otherwise, we're just gonna sit here for now. So that's right.
Yeah, let's do it.
It usually takes about 5 to go, so it's sort of,
Okay, but let's do that. Let's
make sure the budget committee know where to go. You know, be out there. So.
take 4 minutes. We'll be back here for executive session.
And I will read the, please. Port of Columbia County will now meet in executive session pursuant to OS 192-660-2F to consider exempt public records, including written legal advice from Fort General
Yes,
Counsel.
this is gonna be official.
Representatives of the news media and designated staff are allowed to attend. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any discussions or deliberations during this or any executive session. Board commission return to open session and there will be no decision. Now, all persons excluded from executive session are welcome to return. Don't be second, it is resumed. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Work out well.